that it was this explosion in technical innovation, this ingenuity, that really drove the development of a new way of thinking in Restoration England, a way of thinking that we recognise as modern today and nowadays call science. In this age of ingenuity, the ingenious Mr. Hooke, as he was known back then, was busy rebuilding the City of London with his great friend and colleague, Christopher Wren. He was a familiar figure making his way through the narrow, crowded streets of London, small, wiry and dapperly dressed with a distinctive curvature of the spine, often clutching some new piece of equipment or trundling it on a handcart, always in a hurry, always working on one or several of his many new inventions. Historian of science Simon Schaffer.
What Hooke was really good at was knowing who to ask. I may not be able to do it myself, I know a man who can. He was just the sort of figure who would spend his mornings negotiating quite hard with instrument makers for reliable, effective and hopefully cheap devices that would work, and constantly working with brass and glass, wood and paper to see if it was possible to advance and improve mechanical learning.
He worked on flying a lot. He was so interested in trying to fly, but as far as we know, he never really got anywhere. No, never got off the ground.
Felicity Henderson is currently editing Hooke's diaries. His daily entries in obsessively tiny writing detail a hodgepodge of disparate activities crammed into every waking minute, including his dealings with the renowned clockmaker Thomas Tompion.
At one point he said he had 100 ways of putting a spring mechanism into a clock. And you can imagine the, annoyance that might have caused for someone like Thomas Tompion, who was a very hard-working man, but had his own business to run as well.
I can imagine Hooke as being a man who he wasn't going to wait. He wasn't going to let Tompion fulfil another commission. He was going to have these 20 ideas tried out in the next week.
Well, exactly. And you can see that very strongly in the diary, that he's really visiting Tompion almost every day and saying, Tompion's being very slow, he's not doing the things that I want him to do. And there is a slight falling out over that. But Tompion really did put into action some of Hooke's ideas and made money from making clocks.
And it does make London the centre of precision watchmaking for almost a century.
Absolutely. It gave a huge boost to the industry in London.
Which in turn gave a boost to a more mechanistic way of thinking about the world. In an age when spring-driven clocks were all the rage, the smartphones of their day, Jim Bennett at the Science Museum believes it's no accident that a new mechanical view of the universe took hold of the public imagination.
Getting mechanism into thinking that that's the way the natural world works, the source of that has to be mechanical practice in the 16th and 17th centuries. Clocks are extraordinarily well developed in the 17th century. Thomas Tompion is making clocks that do extraordinary things as far as his contemporaries are concerned.
20 years earlier, you couldn't actually measure a second accurately, and suddenly you can keep time over long periods.
And you can make the clocks do amusing and spectacular things, in terms of automata that perform. So it's difficult to think of a task which can't, at least in theory, be performed by a sufficiently complicated clock. And that's just made by man. Think of what God could do if you were to look behind the appearance of the natural world. Think of the mechanisms that God could have designed.
Among the ingenious men we would now call scientists, the hope was that new mechanical devices would reveal the exquisite organisation of God's creation. With the help of London artisans on Pudding Lane, Hooke perfected the ideal instrument to reveal nature's underlying minute mechanisms. Of all the ingenious devices he worked on, it was the microscope that made Hooke's reputation. In 1665 he published his masterwork, Micrographia. It's a gorgeous, large-format coffee table book full of captivating illustrations of familiar objects, hugely magnified under a microscope, from the barbs of a stinging nettle to the eye of a housefly. It sounds innocuous now, but to the 17th century it was